Welcome to the Platform Engineering Playbook podcast, where everything you hear is built, reviewed, and improved by AI, by me, and by you, the listener. This show keeps me, and hopefully you, up to speed on the latest in platform engineering, SRE, DevOps, and production engineering. It's a living experiment in how AI can help us track, explain, and discuss the fast-moving world of infrastructure. Every episode is open source. If you've got something to add, correct, or challenge, head to platform-engineering-playbook.com. You'll find all the content and a link to the GitHub repo. Open a pull request, join the conversation, and make the playbook smarter. Let's get into it.
Before we dive into our year in review special, let's cover 3 news stories that perfectly bookend 2025. First up, DevOps.com published a piece called The Self-Inflicted Outage that captures exactly what happened this year. The thesis? The cloud spent years telling us it was too big to fail, but 2025 was the year that theory met reality.
This article connects directly to what we've been covering all year. From null pointers to DNS race conditions, we watched a steady procession of outages turn the internet into loading screens. AWS, Azure, Cloudflare. The key insight is that recovery complexity is now the biggest risk to uptime. The systems designed for resilience failed twice, once in the primary automation and again in the recovery automation.
Second story, Meta announced BPF Jailer at Linux Plumbers Conference this week. They're using eBPF-based mandatory access control to replace CLinux for AI workloads. The proliferation of AI workloads required increased security around key services, specifically jailing untrusted code and preventing tampering with user data.
BPF Jailer blocks access to the network, file system, and IPC using BPF LSM in a flexible way tailored to AI workloads. This is a significant shift from static compile time policies like CLinux rules to programmable policies loaded at runtime. It's part of the broader eBPF momentum we're seeing across the industry.
And third, the new stack published 3 core principles for sustainable platform design. Platform as a product extends platform engineering beyond a narrow technology solution. The 3 principles? Highly contextualized tooling, scalability, and sustainability. An effective platform gives software teams more time for revenue-focused work.
The key point is that technology-focused platform designs often solve only part of the wider challenge. To reach the full promise of platforms, organizations must think not only about technology components, but also about how they package the experience of providing and consuming managed services. Links to all 3 articles are in the show notes.
Now, onto our main feature. 2025 was the year platform engineering grew up and got a reality check. AI entered infrastructure in ways we couldn't ignore. Industry consensus finally emerged on what platforms should actually do, and then Cloudflare went down 6 times to remind us that concentration risk isn't just theoretical. Today, we're looking back at the 10 stories that defined platform engineering in 2025.
What a year it's been. We published 58 podcast episodes and 33 blog posts covering everything from KubeCon in London and Atlanta to AWS reInvent. We analyzed critical vulnerabilities, celebrated CNCF graduations, and watched the industry mature in real time. Let's dive into the defining moments.
We'll start with arguably the biggest shift, AI becoming native to Kubernetes. At KubeCon North America in November, the CNCF launched the Kubernetes AI Conformance Program version 1.0. This wasn't just another certification. It was the industry finally standardizing how AI workloads run on Kubernetes.
The timing was critical. Dynamic Resource Allocation, or DRA, reached general availability in Kubernetes 1.34. DRA fundamentally changes how GPUs and accelerators are managed. Instead of static allocation, workloads can now request specific GPU capabilities dynamically. 11 vendors certified immediately: Google Cloud, Azure, Oracle, CoreWeave, and AWS among them.
The numbers tell the story. Teams implementing DRA properly are seeing 30 to 40% GPU cost savings. That's not incremental, that's transformational for AI infrastructure budgets.
But here's the counterpoint. While Kubernetes standardized AI workloads, AWS reInvent in December introduced something else entirely: agentic AI for platform engineering. Their DevOps agent can identify root causes of incidents with 86% accuracy. GitHub launched Agent HQ for orchestrating multiple AI agents from different providers.
Werner Vogel's coined a term that stuck with me: verification debt. It's like technical debt, but for AI systems. Every autonomous action an agent takes without human verification accumulates verification debt. And here's the sobering reality: 80% of companies report that their agents have executed unintended actions. Only 44% have agent-specific security policies.
Gartner predicts 40% of agentic AI projects will fail by 2027. So while AI infrastructure is standardizing on Kubernetes, the autonomous AI layer above it is still the Wild West.
Let's talk about platform engineering itself. After years of definitional chaos, where everyone had a different opinion on what platform engineering even meant, 2025 brought consensus.
3 principles emerged across multiple KubeCon talks, industry reports, and practitioner discussions. First, API-first self-service. Platforms must expose capabilities through APIs that developers consume directly, not tickets they submit and wait on. Second, business relevance. Platforms must tie their value to business outcomes, not just technical metrics. Third, the managed service approach. Internal platforms should feel like using a cloud service, not fighting with infrastructure.
The adoption data from DORA 2025 is striking. 90% of organizations now have platform initiatives. That's near universal. But here's the uncomfortable truth: platform teams actually decreased throughput by 8% and stability by 14% on average.
How is that possible? We covered this in episode 40, the puppy for Christmas anti-pattern. Organizations adopt platforms like a child receives a puppy. Excitement at first, then the realization that it requires constant feeding, training, and attention. Most teams renamed their ops team Platform Engineering and expected different results.
The teams that succeed share common characteristics. Optimal size is 6 to 12 people, following the Spotify squad model. They have dedicated platform leadership at 100+ engineers to shield from competing priorities, and they evolve their interaction model, starting with collaboration while building, then transitioning to X as a service when mature.
When done right, the numbers are compelling. 8 to 10% individual productivity boost, 10% team productivity boost. But getting there requires treating the platform as a product with actual product management discipline.
Let's shift to the stories nobody wanted but everyone learned from. 2025 will be remembered as the year infrastructure concentration risk became undeniable.
October 19th, AWS US East 1 went down. Not partially, not briefly. For over 14 hours, 70+ AWS services were degraded or unavailable. The root cause? A DNS race condition in DynamoDB. The impact? 6.5 million downtime reports globally. Cost estimates ranged to $75 million per hour.
Then came Cloudflare. Not once, not twice, 6 major outages in 2025. On November 18th, a Rust panic in their proxy code took down 20% of the internet for 6 hours. ChatGPT, X, Shopify, Discord, Spotify, all affected. Then on December 5th, just 3 weeks later, 28% of HTTP traffic impacted for 25 minutes.
The pattern is clear. The organizations we depend on are single points of failure for massive portions of the internet. Multi-region, multi-cloud, multi-CDN strategies aren't paranoid over-engineering, they're risk management.
And then there was IngressNightmare. CVE 2025-1974 disclosed March 24th with a CVSS score of 9.8. Unauthenticated remote code execution in Ingress Nginx. 43% of cloud environments were vulnerable, 6,500 clusters exposed, including Fortune 500 companies.
The response was equally dramatic. Ingress Nginx announced retirement with a March 2026 deadline. Only 1 or 2 maintainers remained.
no security patches after the deadline. Platform teams now have a hard migration deadline to Gateway API.
Speaking of maintainers, let's talk about the open source sustainability crisis that 2025 made visible.
The CNCF celebrated its 10th birthday at KubeCon in London. 300,000 contributors, hundreds of projects, incredible growth. But behind those numbers, 60% of maintainers are unpaid. 60% have left or are considering leaving.
The XZ Utils backdoor from late 2024 cast a long shadow over 2025. A lone maintainer, burned out, unknowingly merged malicious code. It reminded the entire industry that our infrastructure depends on volunteers who often receive no compensation.
At KubeCon Atlanta, there was a memorial for Hong Kong, the In Toto project lead. It was a sobering moment. These aren't anonymous contributors. They're people with lives, families, and limits.
The industry is responding. CNCF invested over $3 million in security audits, tooling, and frameworks. The open source pledge is gaining traction, recommending $2,000 per developer per year to fund the projects you depend on. If your company runs on Kubernetes and doesn't contribute financially to open source, 2025 should be your wake-up call.
Let's talk about the tools and projects that shaped 2025. Infrastructure as Code saw major consolidation.
IBM acquired HashiCorp for $6.4 billion. The Terraform versus OpenTofu debate that dominated 2024 reached a resolution of sorts. OpenTofu achieved feature parity in July and crossed 10 million downloads. For teams committed to open source, the path is clear.
The surprise was CDKTF. HashiCorp deprecated it after 5 years, effectively conceding the CDK war to Pulumi. If you're using CDKTF, your migration timeline just accelerated.
Helm 4 released at KubeCon Atlanta, first major version in 6 years. WebAssembly plugins for portability, server-side apply replacing three-way merge, 40 to 60% faster deployments for large releases. If you're still on Helm 3, you have a 12-month support runway until November 2026.
Argo CD 3.0 went GA in May. Fine-grained RBAC, security improvements, better scaling characteristics, and Gateway API 1.4 reached general availability in October, cementing its position as the successor to Ingress.
3 CNCF graduations deserve recognition. Crossplane in November, with 70-plus adopters, including Nike, NASA, and SAP. Knative in October, maturing the serverless event-driven model. And KubeFest in January, proving distributed storage at 350 petabyte scale.
Now let's talk economics. GPU waste became impossible to ignore in 2025.
The average H100 GPU runs at 13% utilization. Think about that. An H100 costs roughly $3 per hour on cloud. At 13% utilization, you're wasting $4,350 per month per GPU.
Across the industry, 60 to 70% of GPU budgets are wasted. We covered a case study in episode 34 where a team went from 20 H100s to 7 H100s. That's a 65% reduction, $35,000 monthly savings, same workloads.
DRA, time slicing, MIG partitioning, spot instances, regional arbitrage. These aren't advanced techniques anymore. They're mandatory knowledge for anyone managing AI infrastructure.
Service Mesh saw its own efficiency revolution. Istio Ambient Mode reached general availability, and the benchmarks are striking. 90% memory reduction, 50% CPU reduction compared to Sidecar architecture.
70% of organizations now run Service Mesh. The Sidecar era is ending. We benchmarked Istio Ambient against Cilium in episode 33. 8% MTLS overhead for Ambient versus 99% for Cilium. At 2,000 pods, that translates to $186,000 annual savings.
eBPF continues its march. Cilium, Tetragon, and the entire eBPF ecosystem are becoming the default for networking, security, and observability. The kernel-native approach is winning.
So, what's coming in 2026? Let me give you the hard deadlines first.
March 2026,
IngressNGX retires. No more security patches. If you haven't migrated to Gateway API, your clusters are vulnerable.
Agentic AI adoption will accelerate, but verification debt will become a real problem. The companies that figure out agent governance early will have significant advantages. The ones that don't will join Gartner's 40% failure prediction.
Platform teams at enterprise scale will face new challenges. Episode 58 covered Okta's journey from 12 to 1,000 clusters. The lessons about Argo CD scaling, sharding, and hub-spoke architectures will become relevant to more organizations.
The CNPE certification, CNCF's new platform engineering credential, will create a professionalization wave. 2026 might be the year platform engineering gets its CKA equivalent.
Platform teams at enterprise scale will face new challenges. Episode 58 covered Okta's journey from 12 to 1,000 clusters. The lessons about Argo CD scaling, sharding, and hub-spoke architectures will become relevant to more organizations.
The CNPE certification, CNCF's new platform engineering credential, will create a professionalization wave. 2026 might be the year platform engineering gets its CKA equivalent.
Multi-cluster management becomes standard, not exceptional. SBOM requirements become federal mandate for many vendors, and Kubernetes continues its rapid innovation with 1.35 and beyond.
Let me close with my top 5 takeaways from 2025. First, AI infrastructure is now standardized. The Kubernetes AI Conformance Program means vendor lock-in is optional if you architect correctly. Second, platform engineering has a definition: API-first self-service, business relevance, managed service approach. Use it. Third, concentration risk is real. Multi-region, multi-cloud, multi-CDN isn't paranoia, it's risk management. Fourth, open source needs funding. If you depend on it, pay for it. $2,000 per developer per year is the recommendation. Fifth, GPU waste is the new cloud waste. 13% utilization is unacceptable. DRA and time slicing are table stakes.
And my action items for 2026. Migrate to Gateway API before March. IngressNGX is retiring and you don't want to rush. Implement DRA for AI workloads. 30 to 40% cost savings are achievable. Audit your agent policies. If you're in the 56% without them, you're accepting significant risk. Review your Cloudflare and AWS dependencies. 2025 proved that these providers can fail dramatically. And sponsor an open source project. The CNCF, Apache, and Linux Foundation all accept contributions. Pick a project you depend on and fund it.
2025 was the year platform engineering grew up. AI arrived in ways we're still processing, consensus emerged on what platforms should actually do, and reality tested our assumptions about reliability and sustainability. The infrastructure you build in 2026 should reflect these lessons.
The fundamentals remain constant: reliability, security, cost efficiency. But the tools, patterns, and threats keep evolving. Stay curious, stay critical, and we'll see you in 2026.
That's it for this episode of the Platform Engineering Playbook podcast. Every topic, transcript, and summary you just heard lives out in the open at platform-engineering-playbook.com, where anyone can suggest updates or add insights through GitHub. If you've got thoughts, fixes, or new ideas, open a PR. And if you enjoyed the episode, rate us on your favorite podcast platform. We're always shooting for 5 stars. While you're there, give the project a star on GitHub. It helps others find and contribute to the Platform Engineering Playbook. This podcast is generated by AI, reviewed by AI, me and you, a community of engineers keeping our craft sharp. Thanks for listening, and see you next time inside the Platform Engineering Playbook.